Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Oh,
Today, we're pulling back the curtain on, well, one of Western culture's most towering, turbulent figures, Richard Wagner. This is part one, The Ascent and the Fire.
absolutely. And when you look at Wagner, born 1813, died 1883, you're really looking at someone whose ambition just fundamentally reshaped opera.
Right.
His big idea, the core concept, was the Gesamtkunstwerk, the total work of art.
Which sounds very grand.
It is, but it wasn't just theory, you know? It was more like a blueprint for, well, absolute artistic control. He felt he needed to unify everything: poetry, music, visuals, drama. But crucially, he also knew he needed to own the place where it happened, the temple, so to speak, for his singular vision.
And that need for total control, that's really the engine driving this first part of our deep dive, isn't it?
Exactly.
We're tracking, the really dizzying first half of his life from this kind of obscure, maybe identity-confused kid through, well, catastrophic debt, political exile, then creating this monumental myth cycle. And finally, the rather scandalous realization of his artistic fortress at Bayreuth.
It's quite a ride.
It really is. Let's unpack this relentless drama. Okay, so let's start where all great dramas often do: a confusing childhood. Before the maestro, who was this boy, wrestling with questions of origin and already seemingly fixed on the stage?
Well, Wagner's start in life is definitely shrouded in a kind of theatrical ambiguity. He was born in Leipzig, 1813. His father dies just 6 months later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And his mother then lives with Ludwig Geyer, who was an actor and playwright. He basically raised Richard in Dresden. And for years, until he was 14, Wagner was actually known as Wilhelm Richard Geyer. He likely believed Geyer was his biological father.
So he was quite literally raised backstage then. This early immersion in theater through Geyer must have been foundational.
Absolutely. He even remembered playing an angel in one performance. He was, breathing the air of illusion and spectacle right from the start.
Just soaking it all in.
And apparently obsessed. At age 9, he saw Carl Maria von Weber's opera, Der Freischütz. The dark Gothic elements made a huge impression. That experience seemed to focus his ambition. He'd already written this huge, bloody tragedy called Lubald, inspired by Shakespeare and Goethe.
Ambitious for a kid.
Very. And after seeing Freischütz, he suddenly decided he absolutely had to set his play to music.
But the real spark, the moment that seems to define everything, that came a bit later, didn't it? Around 1829.
Yes, when he was about 16. He saw the dramatic soprano Wilhelmine Schroeder-Devrient perform.
And that just clicked for him.
He described it as a defining event. Her performance, this fusion of drama and music, he called it profoundly human and ecstatic.
That's intense.
And that's the exact feeling, that intensity, he seems to have chased for his entire career.
He actually claimed it lit an almost demonic fire in him, which is, incredibly strong language.
It is.
But was this demonic fire just purely artistic? Or do you think it was also maybe fueled by the constant urgency and financial chaos that seemed to follow him?
Oh, I think it was both, definitely. The drive was immediate. You see it in his studies at Leipzig University in 1831. His composition teacher, Theodor Weinlig.
Right.
He was apparently so impressed, so stunned by Wagner's talent and sheer commitment that he refused to take any payment for the lessons.
Wow. So the talent was undeniable even then.
Undeniable. You could say the seeds of the Gesamtkunstwerk were already sown right there in that childhood, steeped in stagecraft, lit by that ecstatic soprano. And that fiery artistic ambition we just talked about, it was very quickly matched by, well, a financial catastrophe and political urgency. That seems to be the pattern. Yeah,
the chaos arrives early. By 1833, he's a choir master in Würzburg, but his first attempts at opera, not so great.
No, his first complete opera, Die Feen, it wasn't produced for 50 years. 50. And his next one, Das Liebesverbot, based on Shakespeare's Measure for Measure, believe it or not, that was just a total mess, closed after the first night.
Ouch. And that led straight to
debt, which, as we quickly find out, was Wagner's kind of natural state.
Seems like it.
By 1839, things were so bad financially that he and his first wife, Minna Planer, had to basically flee Riga.
Right.
On the run from creditors.
Fleeing debt collectors. And they had this awful journey, didn't they? A really stormy sea passage to London.
Terrible, yes. But there was a silver lining, if you can call it that, to this terrifying trip.
Which was?
It directly inspired the idea for Der Fliegende Holländer, the Flying Dutchman.
Ah, right. So turning financial disaster into mythic inspiration. Necessity being the mother of invention, I suppose.
Pretty much, yeah. He did find some stability later, though, back in Germany, in Dresden, from 1842.
Right.
He had successful premieres of Rienzi, then Der Fliegende Holländer, and Tannhäuser. Things were looking up. He even landed the big job, Royal Saxon Court Conductor.
But stability, as you said, seems almost contrary to his nature.
It seems so. Because despite the success, he got doubly involved in radical politics, started associating with socialist German nationalists, and, crucially, with the famous Russian anarchist Mikhail Bakunin.
That's a serious turn. And it didn't end well, did it? His political activities came to a head in 1849.
Right. The May Uprising in Dresden. He played a minor role, but a role nonetheless in this unsuccessful rebellion.
And the consequences for siding with a failed rebellion were?
Immediate. Warrants issued for his arrest. He had to flee Germany instantly.
And that kicked off his long exile.
Exactly. 12 years, mostly in Switzerland. So political necessity didn't just force him out of the country. You could argue it forced this radical artistic break from Germany and from the traditional opera he'd only just mastered.
Like he had to invent something entirely new to justify burning those bridges.
Perhaps. It certainly fueled the next phase. Exile became creation.
So in the, let's say, forced quiet of Swiss exile, the fugitive turns inward, retreats into myth, ready to build this massive theatrical universe.
Yeah, once he's settled in Zurich, his focus shifts dramatically to writing theory, really revolutionary theoretical work.
Like manifestos.
Essentially, yes. He wrote these seminal essays like The Artwork of the Future and Opera and Drama. In these, he really fleshed out the Gesamtkunstwerk idea.
Okay.
Arguing for unifying all the arts, music, poetry, visuals, and basically laying out the whole aesthetic for what he called music drama. And in doing so, he pretty much rejected his own earlier operas as too conventional.
He's literally writing the rule book for his own revolution.
Exactly. And the work he chose to embody this huge theory was, of course, the Ring Cycle.
4 massive interconnected dramas.
Intended to be produced over 3 days in a 4-evening, as he put it. And crucially, at a special, custom-built festival theater.
The ambition is just staggering. And the way he created it is fascinating, too, isn't it? He wrote it backwards?
Yeah. It's completely unorthodox. He started the libretti in reverse, began with what would eventually become Götterdämmerung, initially called Siegfried's Death, back in 1848.
Right.
Then worked his way backwards through Der junge Siegfried, later just Siegfried, then Die Walküre, and finally Das Rheingold. Finished the whole text by 1852.
Wow. And he used that distinctive language style, too, the Stobreim.
Yes, Stobreim. That's the highly alliterative verse, lots of repeated consonants.
Like tongue twisters?
Sort of, but the aim was to evoke the sound and rhythm of old Germanic epics, make it feel ancient, powerful, and yet totally new at the same time. Think less roses are red and more Wotan's wandering wheel wields, that kind of thing.
Got it. Now here's where philosophy crashes the party, right? 1854, Schopenhauer.
Ah, yes. A huge moment. Wagner encounters Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy, mainly the world as will and representation. He later called it the single most important event of his life.
Why? What was so revolutionary about it for him? Well, it was almost like an existential crisis presented as an intellectual breakthrough. Schopenhauer argued that music was actually the supreme art form.
Supreme, not equal.
Not equal, supreme. Because Schopenhauer saw music as a direct, immediate expression of the will, this blind, unknowable force driving everything.
Okay, so Schopenhauer basically just torpedoed Wagner's whole Gesamtkunstwerk idea, where music and drama were meant to be equal partners.
Pretty much. He essentially told Wagner, your music, that's the only bit that truly matters.
How on earth did Wagner deal with that? That's a fundamental challenge to his core belief.
It seems to have profoundly shifted his priorities, actually. The sources suggest this shock pushed him to give music a far more dominant and ultimately more pessimistic role in his later works.
Including the rest of the Ring.
Yes, including the latter half of the Ring, which he hadn't composed the music for yet. It's like Schopenhauer's philosophical pessimism got woven right into the fabric, the deep, dark, expansive world of the Ring.
Okay, so Wagner's still in exile, still broke, still dreaming big, and then rescue arrives from the most improbable source imaginable.
Utterly improbable. A teenage king.
Right. In 1864, Wagner's fortunes just completely flip. 18-year-old King Ludwig II of Bavaria, who is this incredibly passionate admirer of Wagner's work.
Obsessed, really.
Obsessed, yes. He summons Wagner to Munich, pays off all his massive debts.
Just like that.
And promises to stage all his planned operas. I mean, Talk about a reversal.
It's astonishing. But this wasn't your typical patronage deal.
Yeah.
Their correspondence is, well, intense, almost theatrical in itself. Ludwig's letters are full of things like, "My dearest beloved," and "Oh, Holy One, I worship you."
Well, directed at Wagner.
Corrected at Wagner.
Yeah.
And Wagner, ever the master of manipulation, knew exactly how to play that tune back.
So a dangerous intimacy then.
Yeah.
Mixing royal power, artistic dependence, and this intense emotion.
Extremely dangerous. And it blows up pretty quickly around the premiere of Tristan and Isolde.
Which the king insisted on staging in Munich,
Right.
1865.
Yes. But the premiere itself was chaotic. Delayed because of Wagner's creditors again.
Always the creditors.
Always. And then the soprano got sick. It was eventually conducted by Hans von Bülow, but the real drama, ironically, wasn't on the stage at all.
Where was it then?
It was the massive public scandal swirling around Wagner himself. He was having a very open affair with the conductor's wife, Cosima von Bülow.
Wait, the wife of Hans von Bülow, the man conducting the premiere.
The very same. And Cosima was 24 years younger than Wagner and also Franz Liszt's illegitimate daughter. It gets complicated.
That's beyond awkward. And hadn't the affair already produced a child by then?
Yes. Cosima had already given birth to Wagner's daughter, whom they named Isolde.
Isolde.
Yeah.
Named after the opera conducted by her mother's husband while her mother was having an affair with the composer.
Precisely. It's less Gesamtkunstwerk and more like some kind of wild Renaissance revenge plot.
How did the king handle this? Didn't this just completely torpedo his support?
It nearly did. The court in Munich was absolutely scandalized. They were deeply suspicious of Wagner's influence over the young, emotionally fragile king anyway. The pressure just became too much. Ludwig, despite his adoration, was eventually forced to ask Wagner to leave Munich, December 1865.
Kicked out of paradise.
Pretty much. That dangerous mix of patronage, passion, and public scandal almost completely consumed him. So, driven out of the Munich court, Wagner now needs a new plan. He needs his own space, his own temple, away from court politics.
He needs Bayreuth. But first, Ludwig sets him up somewhere else.
Right. Yes, Ludwig settles him in the Villa Trübchen on Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. A period of maybe relative quiet.
Relative being the key word, I imagine.
Right. But he was productive. It was there he finished his only mature comedy, Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg. That premiered in Munich in 1868, despite the earlier troubles.
And his personal life also found some stability.
It did. His first wife, Minna, had died in 1866. He'd had 2 more children with Cosima by this point. She finally managed to secure a divorce from Bülow.
Which must have been complicated.
Extremely. But she did, and she and Wagner finally married in 1870. So the family unit, such as it was established.
But the main focus, the obsession, remained the Ring Cycle, and performing it in its own dedicated theater.
Absolutely. That vision never wavered. In 1871, he finally chose the town of Bayreuth in Bavaria. The town council was supportive enough to donate the land needed, the famous Green Hill.
Building it couldn't have been easy, though. Where did the money come from? Not just Ludwig this time.
Oh, it was a huge struggle. Constant financial difficulty. They relied on fundraising concerts, setting up Wagner societies all over Europe to solicit donations.
Like crowdfunding 19th century style.
Kind of, yeah. But the whole project nearly collapsed in 1874. It was only saved by another critical, last-minute, very large loan from King Ludwig.
The king rides to the rescue again.
Indeed. Wagner apparently wrote to him, "Each stone is red with my blood and yours." Gives you a sense of the drama.
And Wagner didn't just build a theater. He built, like, a manifesto in stone, didn't he? With all those architectural innovations.
Completely. Radical stuff for the time. Designed for total immersion. He insisted on darkening the auditorium, completely unheard of then.
Right. Audiences usually socialize during performances.
Exactly. And most famously, he put the orchestra in a pit hidden from view under the stage. The mystic gulf, he called it.
What was the impact of basically telling the elite audience to shut up, sit in the dark, and stop looking at the musicians?
It was revolutionary. He demanded the focus be solely on the stage, on the drama, the Gesamtkunstwerk. Hiding the orchestra removed the distraction, the celebrity of the players, even the conductor. It forced the audience into this almost ritualistic state of concentration.
And finally, after all the struggle, the climax.
Yeah.
The Bayreuth Festspielhaus opens, August 13th, 1876.
With the Das Rheingold, the start of the very first complete performance of the entire Ring Cycle, just as he'd always intended.
Who was there? It must have been a huge event.
Oh, enormous. A real who's who of global power and culture. The German Kaiser was there, the Emperor of Brazil, composers like Tchaikovsky, Bruckner. But, and this is crucial, the festival ended with a massive financial deficit. Again. And the critical reception was actually deeply mixed.
Not universal acclaim, then.
Far from it. Perhaps the most telling reaction came from his one-time friend, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. He was there, and he was bitterly disappointed.
Why?
He felt the spectacular reality of Bayreuth pandered too much to German nationalism, that it betrayed the deeper philosophical ideas Wagner had started with. It was a victory of sheer will, certainly, but the cost was immediate financial ruin and, for some, profound disillusionment. Hashtag outro.
So we've traced this absolutely dizzying ascent. Richard Wagner, the indebted revolutionary, the philosopher wrestling with myth, and finally the architect who literally carved his own temple out of, well, sheer will and a lot of royal debt.
Yeah.
He really soared from total obscurity to become this genuine European artistic titan.
He absolutely did. But the story, as dramatic as this first half has been, is really far from over. Because despite achieving the ring and building Bayreuth, his later years bring his final, very complex opera, Parsifal. And they also see him becoming increasingly entangled with deeply controversial ideas.
Which sets the stage for his complicated legacy.
Exactly. His shadow stretches long into the next century, and we'll definitely need to unpack that and the assessment of his legacy, including his antisemitism and later appropriation in part 2.
Definitely. But for now, maybe something to think about is this. Wagner felt he needed this total, almost isolated control over every single element, down to the building itself, to realize his vision. Does that same intense, maybe almost pathological need for artistic control, for a kind of sequestered creation, still define how genuinely challenging transformative art gets made today?
Yeah.
In our age of, constant access and collaboration.
That's a really interesting question, something definitely worth pondering.
Something to think about until our next deep dive.